all the skills we used to think declined, they're use it or lose it skills. And if you never stop training them, you get to hang on to them and even advance them far later in life than you thought possible. I'll give you a simple example on the physical side. So VO2 max, which is the upper threshold aerobic capacity, right? Like if you're bump skiing or you're sprinting or, hip hop dancing or something in a slam pit, something, and all those examples would require VO2 max. We used to believe, the scientific community used to believe, it didn't even matter what advancements you made in peak performance aging, because sooner or later somebody's going to punch you in the face with VO2 max. Because it starts dropping in your 20s, and the general feeling is it like falls off a cliff after 50, and by 80 you're totally screwed, right? And then they started noticing this weird thing started happening in ultra running, where men and women in their 70s and 80s started outperforming people in their 50s and 60s. And that was weird. In like 100-mile races or 150-mile races, like these crazy grueling races, and suddenly like people who really should not be doing well were doing better than younger folks, and they tried to figure out what was going on, and they took another look at VO2 max of like triathletes in their 80s. So octogenarian triathletes, they looked at VO2 max, and they figured out that those who had started regularly training VO2 max, meaning you pushed on your upper respiratory capacity a couple times a week, starting in your 50s, by the time they got to their 80s, they hit the VO2 max of healthy 35-year-olds. In fact, the world record holder is a dude, I think he's 88, and he's got the VO2 max of a 25-year-old. And so this is just one example. And it's weird stuff. Strength, I'll give you another example. So muscle fibers decline over time, right? If you get to your 80s, 30% of your muscle fibers will have atrophied. And that sounds like a freaking death sentence. Except it turns out the fibers that remain sort of learn how to do double duty. And we gain wisdom, so we get better at doing these skill things on top of it over time, and the remaining. So it's like you end up, we're going to lose some strength, right? We are, but it's like 10 to 15% of what's possible, not 30% or 40% or 50% or the other things that people say. So if you look at like the meta-analyses on this, they'll say things like the performance of masters and elite level athletes is remarkable. Like you see things in people's 60s, 70s, and 80s that don't even make sense, that, you go back 25, 30 years ago, and we were seeing this in people in their 40s and 50s and 60s, and we're now seeing it up in their 80s. And by the way, it's probably happening in our 90s, but nobody's looked. Most of the data sort of ends at our 80s, because a lot of the young and vigorous people who are going to be doing this stuff, they're not there yet, or we just haven't done the work. So it probably extends out longer, but that's what we've actually just done the work on.